Today is the first day of this prestigious event, which will be focusing on governance. And we have with us a special guest for the inaugural of India Digital Empowerment Meet and Awards. In the inaugural session, we have with us Professor Ashutosh Sharma, Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. We welcome Professor Ashutosh Sharma. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Goswami. Good morning, namaskar to all. I am so glad to see that APAC News Network is organizing this very important function. There could be nothing more important than digital technologies for the future and indeed the future of our country and the global community. And I'm very happy to see also a very compelling first session of the meeting, the conference, in which we have Secretary Mahua, Mr. Durga Shankar Mishra, and later Defense Secretary Dr. Ajay Kumar. And I see Dr. Neeta Verma, DG NIC. So we got a very good session going here. Indeed, the digital technologies are all pervasive. Now they're all pervasive because we know they are in manufacturing, they are in education, in agriculture, in healthcare, in logistics, in all sorts of services, retail, government services, and so on. So indeed, there is no aspect of life which is not touched by what we call digital. And indeed, the digital, it's not always been there, is just about 30 years old. So we all know the rise of internet, the rise of email, mobile, everything else that we take for granted today. Um, so while digital has a beginning, it certainly has no end. So the future, which is coming to us faster and faster, what are the defining features of this future? Well, the first aspect that we must remember very strongly is that the future is all about the convergence of technologies. So all the technologies that were working in silos until now, these are technologies, the old technologies of industry one, two, three. So one and two are basically about machines, the physical machines on which all our industry is based. The industry 3.0 is based on what I call passive digital, which means that we carry this digital outside of us. It's not integrated with machines in a very intimate way. So the future is about the convergence, it's about the integration, it's about working together of different streams of technology. What are these different streams? So first one, of course, we said mechanical, electrical, the machines, devices, systems, what have you. Well, and that together with the technologies of communication going forward to 5G and beyond, which means very stable, uninterrupted, fast communication, not just between people. So starting from 5G onwards, a whole lot of this communication happens between machines. It also happens between human and machines, but a whole lot of it between machines. And so this is what we call Internet of Things or IoT. So the physical machines, communication, and then the computing. Now the computing, of course, the traditional computing is very concentrated. So, rise of supercomputers and so on, fast processors. But at the same time, the computing is now becoming all pervasive, which means computing at the edge, distributed computing, cloud computing, basically access to computing no matter who you are, no matter where you are. And that's the empowering aspect of both communication and computing, inexpensive and really available to everyone on their own terms. So we counted three things in terms of convergence of technologies. This is the machine, the communication, computing, and all pervasive computing. And now add to that the machines, we are talking about the cutting edge of future. So machines often have to work in an environment, so they need all the information from the environment. Other words, just like humans do, this is about perception. So perception in a machine is through what you call sensors. Sensors of all kinds. This may be measuring radiation, it may be measuring data of all the different kinds, temperature, humidity, rainfall. It depends on the purpose of the machine, which is integrating all these aspects. So perception, which is in the sensors, then the decision making, which is autonomous, just like humans do. So we pull data which is relevant from all sides. We also have perception, so we gather data and then we integrate it in order to arrive at a decision. So this autonomous decision making is through the rise of artificial intelligence and machine learning, or now going on to deep learning. So it is about the machine intelligence, which would in the future graduate to machine general intelligence, which is a very fascinating topic. We have not gotten to there yet, because while the decision making, which is by pattern recognition from big data, is about a specific task and a specific training for the machine learning. The humans work with common sense, which means that we connect different dots of knowledge which have not been connected before. And so it would take some time before machines are able to correlate knowledge, information, data from one sector and project it, extrapolate it to another sector. So anyhow, that's going to happen in the future, where the moment is the autonomous decision making using artificial intelligence. And finally, the final bit of this integration or convergence of technologies is about autonomous action. So autonomous action
हाँ
basically
सर.
means that, look, I got data, I got information, I have
हाँ
made a
सर.
decision, and based on that decision, I'm going to do some action. So like, for example, autonomous vehicles, drones, what have you, the machines of industry 4.0, they are computing all the time, they're calculating all the time, and saying, look, what kind of appropriate action is warranted based on all of this information, and then be able to execute that action, which is called actuators. So now, to kind of as a tight summary of what the future holds, and that future starts today, is happening on a large scale now. So it is the integration of cyber and physical elements of technologies, in particular, computation, communication, perception through sensors, autonomous decision making through machine learning, artificial intelligence, and autonomous execution of those actions through actuators. So you see, this is what you would call an AI universe. So AI is basically algorithm. AI is about software and so on. But a whole lot of this is based on data. And in fact, we must remember that this is something very unique to India. So data is the new engine of growth. In fact, if we were to look at all of these aspects, the analysis of data through algorithm, that is what we call AI, in fact, is not as complex and as time consuming and as expensive as a collection of right kind of data, because collecting right kind of data is really the key to succeed in any of these endeavors. So we often ignore that very important fact, because we, India, as a country, as a society, is so data rich. And it's so easy to ignore it, because just like air, we live with it, so we ignore it. We don't think it's really to be assigned great importance until that I need oxygen, for example. So we must remember that our one of our unique strengths in the country is the fact that we are very diverse. And what that means is that we have very different kind of data. A single country, a single society, providing a diversity of data, whether it is about healthcare, whether it is about transport, energy, water, culture, society, every aspect of it. Like, we are such a big users of social media. So a whole lot of data is actually going over there. You see, the whole point is, how do you monetize data through all the new technologies? You see, so it's not just enough to be generators of data, which is not captured by us, which is not controlled by us, which is not owned by us, which is not localized for us. So the whole point here is to have the entire knowledge chain starting from data. So it's about building on data. And so, what are the aspects of it? You see, the knowledge is like a pyramid. So at the base of it are the measurements and data. So much of it, tons of data. More data is being generated in last 5 years than in the entire previous history of humankind. We must not remember. So this is exponential. This is explosive. Now collecting that data, curating that data, putting it in a form which is usable, and after that building on it. So at the base of pyramid is data and measurements. Now from there, one would distill, one would get out from there information. Information are these bits of things which are not simply uncorrelated random data. It is something based on which you can take actions. So this is information. From information, we have to distill knowledge. So knowledge sits at a little bit higher level in the pyramid of knowledge, and it means is to create frameworks which would allow us to interpret data in the correct sense. Is a framework. So just like we say, okay, the sociology, the principles of psychology, what that means is that any study that I do later, I'm able to interpret it, I'm able to put it in the right perspective. And that actually tells me how to use it in a sensible, meaningful way. And of course, going beyond knowledge, is empathy, it is wisdom, but we would not talk about it here. But in order to make a balanced society, in order to make a happy society, it is not enough to have knowledge, because knowledge is a double edged sword. It cuts both ways. So it's not only about, while we emphasize IQ a lot in the society, and for good reasons, cracking exams and being successful and so on, that's IQ, but we may add to that the emotional quotient, and even going beyond that, empathy quotient. And so that basically means that I'm able to distribute my services. I'm able to put myself in the position of other people and not be totally self centered. And that brings actually prosperity and happiness all across the board, because my prosperity and my happiness depends on a large measure on the happiness of my neighbors and my coworkers and my company and my team. So, while we talk about, we exclusively focus on technologies, we must not forget that the key to success is not technology alone. In fact, we know, if we were to look at the challenges of the future, what are the overarching challenges of the future? It is, of course, the rise of intelligent machines that we start now, but this is all the foreseeable future of humanity. And this is the integration, like I said, of the physical and cyber, leading to Industry 4.0. But also, we think at the same time about Society 5.0, where machines are not at the center, but the people are at the center, and machines are basically there to look at their needs and priorities. Okay, so that's a little different aspect that not worry about right now. Let me kind of give you a very quick rundown on what the Department of Science and Technology is doing related to these technologies, their growth, and what is the potential areas of growth in there. So about 3 years ago, we started a program on cyber physical systems. So as I already pointed out, that the cutting edge of digital is actually cyber physical, which means intelligence in every object, computation in every object, the decision making in every object, which is so highly distributed in machines. Okay, so the cyber physical, and this we translated that into a big national mission last year. So despite pandemic and everything going on, we established 25 hubs of cyber physical systems, which cover the entire AI universe that I talked about, whether it is IoT, it is robotics, it is drones, it is geospatial technologies, it is basics of machine learning, and the applications in all the sectors, starting agriculture, education, manufacturing, healthcare, transport, energy, water networks, what have you. So this is at an investment of 3,660 crores rupees. So it is setting up these 25 hubs. They're already creating a lot of new algorithms, a lot of new fusion between the cyber and physical. Just to give you an example, the hub called Art Park at IISc Bangalore. They have already produced many technologies. So, like I said, despite many constraints during the last 1 year, they have been very successful in doing this. As an example, if you just upload your X-rays, digital or analog, or low resolution or high resolution, doesn't matter. And we now even have these small desktop X-ray machines that you can take to rural areas. You can take them anywhere. So you take this X-ray, you upload it,
Right.
and there's uploading, then using artificial intelligence with 99% accuracy, they can diagnose 15 conditions of lungs, right, including COVID-19. So
Yes.
imagine that the kind of revolution. By the way, this is a free service right now. So I would say if you look for Art Park, ARTPARK, hub, I'll tell you actually where to upload these X-rays if you want this service. So it's about collecting data and then building algorithms on top of it. Let me give you another example in terms of what we are saying, data and the ease of collecting data and the ease of using data to build on applications that would benefit everybody. So before I come to that, the concluding part, let me also say that there's a new mission on quantum technologies, which is being seeded now in couple of months at an investment of rupees 8,000 crores by Department of Science and Technology. And there's another mission which is already on. This is a mission on supercomputing. This is a joint partnership of DST and MIT. And already six supercomputers built in India have been established. And now the goal is to establish more than 10 per year going forward. So
Right.
now I must just want to quickly point out that the modern technologies hunt in pairs. So oftentimes we think about, hey, it's only this AI, it's only the algorithm, it's only this, and we get totally focused on that. But very important thing to realize is there is a nexus between all the technologies that are proximal to each other. And so I gave you examples of three such technologies that
Right.
will hunt in pairs: quantum technology, cyber physical systems, and the computing, parallel computing, high performance computing, supercomputing, distributed computing, computing at the edge, what have you, all of that. So it is very important to focus not just on one very deep vertical silo, but also to integrate all these silos together. And so this is very important, but often forgotten because all of us become super specialist in something or other. Okay, so now to conclude the last part about the data, and just to give you one example of how important data can be and how do we actually deal with it, I already pointed out that all of it is not only a problem of technology as we go forward in the future. Rise of intelligent machines, sustainable development is another example, right, which is going to remain with us forever. Come to think of it, sustainable and development is an oxymoron. So basically, it means that you have to balance between your priorities of sustainability with development. So this is intelligent, smart development, if you would. Otherwise, obviously, when you develop, there is a tax for development. That tax for development basically impacts sustainability. So all of these are not only problems of technology. While there's a big aspect of technology in all of this, there is also an aspect of policy, regulation, laws, and above everything else, societal culture, participation of each one of us. And that is a point which is often forgotten when we talk about technology, that each one of us has a responsibility when you talk about sustainable development or you talk about any of these new technologies that are all pervasive. So the last example I was going to say very quickly is about geospatial data. Now, to bring in actually the role of policy in this. Now, geospatial data is related to surveying, mapping, and we know which is at the core of all planning, development, governance, growth, what have you, anything from railroad to dam to any kind of infrastructure and services and logistics. All of this is built on geospatial data. Now, until now, in our country, while our science and technology of surveying and mapping is very old. In fact, it's among the oldest in the world through Survey of India, which was established 253 years ago. Imagine that when even Europe was not undertaking ambitious projects of this kind, which is the mapping of India. No less. Horrible, very, very ambitious task. But anyhow, now we progress to digital technologies. One flies drones, one has satellites, one has LiDAR, and using all of that, you collect geospatial data with unprecedented accuracy of 5 centimeters or even better, which means that every nook and corner of the country could be mapped. Only hitch was that until now, in order to do this, where there was very tight regulation, which means you need 6 to 8 months of lead time to obtain all the approvals. Of course, that is not acceptable in the modern world where you need actually real-time data often. Real-time data as things are happening. Think about Google Map, for example. So now with new geospatial data policy put out by the Department of Science and Technology, that all of this is become history in one broad sweep. What that means is that anywhere somebody has access, there is no approval needed for surveying and mapping. Okay, so it's as simple as that in one sentence. Because you see, what is it? Today, all this data, geospatial data, is available at a certain resolution to anybody. Because you go to Google Map, you go somewhere, all this data is available. So there is no reason why it should not be available to our own citizens. And this is exactly the role of policy to liberalize, to democratize all the technologies that we can actually use. And a whole lot of digital technologies and their effective use is about liberalizing collection and use of data and democratizing the use of that data. Now, liberalization is an obvious concept, which means not
So
having
if you,
tight regulations. What?
yeah, so if you can
I'm
kindly,
concluding. I'm concluding. So it's about ease of doing business. The democratization of data is about sharing of data. So it's, if a government agency collects data with taxpayers' money, there's no reason why that data should be sitting in my Almira and not be useful for the national development, whether public or private sector. So democratization of data, that policy is about sharing of data with ease of access, with total transparency and in a time-bound manner, and also sharing data in a format which becomes useful. It is not about just making some PDF file of data and saying, "Oh, you just take it." Okay, that's no use. It has to be curated. It has to be put in a format which is portable, which is interoperable, and it can be used. Right. So anyhow, I conclude by saying that the future is very exciting, is very bright because of the fusion, integration, and convergence of different streams of technology. It can be hugely empowering, but together with these opportunities are challenges that we have to meet squarely. And to meet them squarely, it requires wisdom, it requires an overarching vision, and it requires participation of each one of us. Not simply saying that somebody up there will take care of everything. It is our understanding and our participation which makes a society empowered. So thank you very much, and I wish the session all the very best going forward today, tomorrow, and day after. Enjoy
thank you so
yourselves.
much, thank you so much, Professor Ashutosh Sharma, Secretary of the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, for joining us in the inaugural of APAC India Digital Empowerment Meet. And I've also talked about various things. You talked about 5G technology, integration of cyber and physical elements in technology, also collecting the right data and curating the data, and democratization of that data for the betterment of society. Thank you so much for joining us in the inaugural.